So class got cut off when the power went out in school, so I'm going to record what we discussed in class. We were talking about box plots and how they're using the 5-number summary, and so you would find that using the calculator. You can find it by hand as well, like we discussed earlier, but you can use the calculator to find those. The 5-number summary consists of the minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and the max. And so that would create your box plot, or some call it a box and whisker plot. So we're going to practice this on this problem. And so we're going to be using our TI-84 so we can plug in these values. So if you want to plug those values into your calculator while I do so, or you can pause the video and go back. So we're going to go to Edit. We're going to clear these out. Sorry, we're going to delete these out. And we're going to enter all of them in. So we have 16, 17, we're going to enter all our data in, and then we're going to hit Stat. We're going to go to the right to hit Calc, and then we're going to have one variable Stats. And we're going to go through, and we're going to transfer all this information over. So we have our mean as our X bar is 19.2. And then we can do our 5-number summary as well. So if we scroll down, we get our 5-number summary, so 16, 18, 19, 20, and our maximum was 22. So you can get those from your calculator. You could also do it by hand. It's not too bad, especially when the number's already in order. And then your range is going to be the maximum, which is 22, minus the minimum, which is 16, so we have a range of 6. And our interquartile range is Q3, which is 20. Minus Q1, which is 18. So we have an interquartile range of 2. Now, we are going to use this information to create a box plot. And so we're just going to create that. And usually a box plot is going to be over a larger amount of numbers, data set, but we're just going to do it individually. You could go up in, on the number line, you could go up by 5s, 10s, whatever fits your data best. So we're going to go up by 1, so we're going to go from 16 to 22. I'm going to label those. And then we're going to also label this as ages, like we labeled yesterday in class. And then from there, we're going to translate the information. So our minimum is at 16. We want to be above the number line. We don't want to be on the number line. And then our Q1 is at 18. So we're going to start our box there. We have a median at 19. That's another line inside the box. And then 20 is our Q3. So that creates our box, and our maximum is 22. So we should have something like that. And that's not perfect. It's not as evenly spaced as I would like, but that gives you the overall idea of how to create a box plot. The next thing we talked about was talking about outliers. And so when we're talking about outliers, we want to know that's a data point that's much greater than or much less than the rest of the data points. So for example, we would calculate this. We're going to actually find the formula in just a moment. But we would calculate this, not just state it, but it does appear that 41 would be a outlier in that data. So to calculate outliers, we're going to use the formula for this, which is Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR, or Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. That creates kind of a lower bound and upper bound. And any numbers that are less than that or greater than that, so less than Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR or greater than Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR, are going to be outliers. Anything that falls in between is not going to be considered an outlier. So it's important to make sure that you have that formula. And so we're going to calculate this. We're looking at Samari's 6 test grades. We talked about this data yesterday. So we're going to calculate the mean and the median. And then we're going to discuss, the possibility of an outlier on the next one. So we would type this into our calculator. I've already done so if you want to pause it and then go talk about it, you can. But, so just to show you is that we already have our data in there. So we're going to hit stat. We're going to go to calc. We're going to go to one variable stats. We're going to go through all of this. We're going to find our mean is 84, and then we can scroll down to our median, which is 85. So we should say that our mean is 84, and our median is 85. And then we're going to do the same thing where we're going to add that they made a 42 on the last test, which seems very, not like the others. And so if we add that into our data set, we go to stat, we go to edit first. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to add that 42 in. We're going to calculate just like we did. So one variable stats. And now our mean is 78 and the mean is 82. But we want to figure out first, before we talk about that last question, is we want to talk about we need to find the Q1, Q3, and our IQR. So we're going to find those with the calculator like we just had. And then we can calculate our IQR. So in our calculator, it said that our Q1 was 71 and Q3 was 90. So that means that our IQR is 90 minus 71, which is going to be 19. And so if we want to test for an outlier on the lower end, we would say our Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR, which we're going to use Q1 is 71 minus 1.5 times 19. And you can plug that in. When you plug it in, you're going to get 42.5. And so we would look to see, do we have any numbers outside of that or lower than that? So then we would say that yes, definitely 42 is an outlier. And we can also test the upper part too. So we could say Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR, which would be 90 plus 1.5 times 19, which will give you 118.5. So we should know that we don't have anything outside that, so there's no outliers on the top half. So what we want to know with this is that if you have an outlier, we can see that her mean changed from an 84 to a 78, while her median went from an 85 to an 82. And so with that second set of data, it seems like the median would be a better measure of center when there's an outlier. And so we can make that as kind of an observation moving forward that if you are asked this question, if an outlier is present, we would suggest having the median being the best measure of center, because majority of her test grades were in the 80s and 90s, and then there was one really bad one that brought it down to a 78. And so if there is no outlier present, then the mean works best, and that's what you typically see in everyday, normal life, like test grades and things like that. So if there's no outlier present, we'll use the mean. If there is an outlier present, we will use the median. And that's all that we talked about in class, so just remember that you have your Delta Math homework today, and have a great rest of your day.